Hey y'all, I just got in from a crazy haul. We had a great day of picking the last few days, and I just unloaded it into that shed. We're headed to the Commonwealth cabin, and I get this question all the time, and I have a special guest who I think is going to give you a different look at this. Should I quit my job and become a full-time eBay reseller? I know a lot of people leave it in my comments all the time how they're excited to someday make it full-time, but I want to give an honest perspective of it from somebody unlike me right now who's making social media income as well as reselling income, and give you a little bit of a different perspective that you don't hear all the time. I don't like all the pie in the sky stuff that I hear sometimes, and this is going to be a great interview. I hope you enjoy it. All right, y'all, I've got Jimmy here. Jimmy's one of my good buddies in the reselling community. He's also got one of the best hats on YouTube, Old School Flips. Sorry, Ray, Nashville Flippers. So, Jimmy, before we start, I want you to give some clarity to this. So, what percentage of your income, all of your income, whatever money's coming from, comes from reselling alone?
99.9, I would say.
Okay.
I mean, it's all of it. Yeah.
A lot, right? And so you don't have a pension you're collecting, or you're not getting a government benefit, or you're not doing any kind of, inheritance from some late grandma or something. All of your money is coming from reselling, with some exception. He does have a channel, Old School Flips. It's actually OSF Flips. He does have a YouTube channel. Would you be willing to share how much you make on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, I'll share it. On last 28 days, right now it's at about $75. So my best month was $110.
And how many thousands of dollars in viewer sales do you get on YouTube?
I've had 3 viewer sales lifetime, and maybe a couple hats. So
there
not
you
a lot.
go. Very cool. So I wanted to clear that up, and I want to get to know you for just a second, but I'm going to ask you some hard-hitting questions, because there's a lot of people out there who want to be free, right? Be free of that job. So first, that's what I want to talk about here. So you can talk about yourself for just a second here, and we're going to get into these topics. I'm not going to let you off the hook. But tell us kind of your story of the old job coming to what you do now as a full-time reseller. What do you got?
All right. So I'll go way back. I used to be a mechanic. I had some medical things that happened that forced me to basically retire from that. It was kind of a scramble for me. I really didn't know what I was going to do, so I went into customer service. Through customer service, I found eBay. That's the quick story. Is I was doing customer service. They let me run their eBay store, and I learned about eBay. And from that, I became a reseller. I met resellers and became a reseller. I did it part-time for 6 months. 6 months part-time. And
so you were doing it for somebody else as a job, and you realized this happens a lot, by the way, when other people go to work. This is the danger of hiring somebody to help help you, because they realize, wait a minute, I could be doing this and making more money than I'm doing working for you. Right. And that's basically what happened, right?
Yeah, they asked me to run their eBay store. I made their numbers blow up, by the way. I tripled their numbers while I was doing that. They sent me to the eBay Open, actually, to learn more about eBay, and that's where I met resellers. Came home that next day, and I opened up my eBay store and started selling items. Started selling my old tools from a mechanic, actually.
There you go. I just realized that his hat says Old School Flips, but it's OSF Picker is the channel. So there you go, Jimmy. All right. So I've been asked this question before. I'm going to ask you this one. If somebody comes up off the street because they know you're a picker and a reseller for a living, and that's their dream to do that because of all the freedom, and we know the benefits from it. Right. But if there's somebody who comes up to you, what is your honest answer to them that says, hey, what should I do? Should I quit my job? Can I be a full-time reseller? What would you answer? How would you answer them?
Man, it depends on the person. I mean, I don't know if I'd have a direct answer for them right away. I think I'd have to ask them quite a few questions, a decent amount of questions. And then maybe after those questions, I'd have a better idea how to answer to that particular person.
I totally agree. And I want to kind of get into what you're thinking about with that, because I was asked this question too, and I said that I would have to ask them a bunch of questions before I gave them an honest opinion. All right, let's step back just a second. So just in your case, what made this a viable option for you to think, yeah, you know what, I could probably do this as my full-time job?
So I started off part-time, And I saw that I was good at it. So the first started, I saw that I was good at it, but there's the risk. Like, I was willing to take risk. I think risk is a big factor on this. I had some discipline. I built up some capital. I didn't go, when I would sell something, I didn't take that money and go spend it on like some for myself or it went into a business account and I saved it up. So
you're operating at a deficit. You didn't have any debt or anything like that.
Yeah, I had no debt whatsoever. I had a plan. Everything I made went into the account and it went back into the business. I didn't go spend it on personal stuff. So you were working
at this other job for a while and basically saying, I think this is a great point, by the way. And if you start doing this as a part-time gig and you're siphoning off all that money and it becomes part of your lifestyle, then when you do quit your job, then you have to ramp it up for the amount of money that you were making at your other job. But what you're saying is you took all of that money that you were making reselling and you were setting it aside.
Yeah.
And so you knew that when that number met the number that you were living on, you knew you could do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And I really, part of it is I really wanted this. Like, I think that's a big factor. I really wanted to, once I found out I love this, I wanted to be full-time. Like, I wanted it really bad. So I said, my goal is to go full-time. So I need to put this money aside so I can go full-time.
I think that is a great point. And I wish people out there would kind of grasp that, because it wasn't the case for me. So for me, Jimmy, and you know my story, we just talked for an hour out there, is I needed to teach and resell to make ends meet, because I didn't get paid that much money teaching and I didn't make that much money. I think the best year, I think I made $48,000 net profit the last year before I started YouTube on reselling. But I got a family of 5 here, and so I was getting past the point where we had a little extra money, but I was using a lot of that money to live.
Right.
And I think that's a huge, huge factor in it. And the fact that you had enough discipline to not live off of your reselling money and look at what you're making, and you knew how much you needed to survive, and then you made the decision. So Jimmy, I like to have full-time resellers, real resellers, unlike me, the fake one out here, right? And I like to have them in here, and I always ask this question: what was the final nail in the coffin? What made you decide? You see, I don't even know if I have, here it is right here. So February 17, 2021, 1:37. That was the day, the time, the hour I made the decision. Right. And I actually filmed it, and I made a video out of it, and I cried. Right. It was hard. And I've kind of gone through why I've made that decision. I'll probably do a little bit further. I might even do it later in this video, just by myself when I kick you out of here. I want to know the moment, the day where you finally decided that this is the time. So take us back.
Well, I was watching one of Kevin's videos, and I was really inspired, and I was like, I want to be just like, the coffin had been being constructed for a while with because I had to go into customer service with some of my physical things, and I didn't like it. I wanted out. And then finally, it was a disagreement with my boss, a little bit of an argument, and we kind of agreed that it was time for me to go. So, but the thing is, the comfort level that I built with that capital, because at that point when that happened, I had some capital built up. I was having part-time success on eBay, and it made that decision easier. Had I not had that capital and had that discipline to save that money, I would have not gone full-time.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, this is not uncommon, what you just said. And I experienced it to some degree, because I knew I was putting all my ducks in a row, getting ready for this. It's what I wanted. And once you get there, you almost have the freedom. It sounds a little silly, but you have the freedom to disagree with your boss.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
because if you're dependent on that employer to make ends meet and to feed yourself, to feed your family, to pay your bills, it's a little easier, a little harder to make that disagreement. And so I think that's not an uncommon thing to have happen, and that's exactly what happened to you. All right, I always ask this question: what was the strategy? So you've already quit this job. You're like, okay, I've already got this much in sales. What is your strategy? What was your key to actually making it work?
It's funny because I found myself like going to a lot of the things I learned over my working career and my careers that I had. I was a mechanic, and before that I was in production. So like, as a mechanic, I always stayed busy. Like, I always had to I wasn't the fastest mechanic, so I had to stay busy all day. My shift, I never stopped working. So I took that into what I did and being honest about it. Like, I can't sit on my couch for 4 hours and then be like, well, why isn't anything selling on eBay? I had to be honest with myself. Was I really putting in that work every day to make this thing successful? And I did. I stay every day to this day. I stay busy all day. Now, the good thing about reselling is some of it's fun. A lot of it's fun.
Yeah,
you know, so
true.
like a busy day of sourcing, well, that's a lot of fun. So that was a huge factor.
What is would you mind telling me what a non-sourcing day looks like? Now, you came down here and you experienced sourcing in Lynchburg.
Yep.
Right.
It's on Saturday and only Saturday.
Only Saturday. You got it. There was 2 Friday sales, and that's pretty rare. Usually we don't have that many. But you source on 3 days a week. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes 4. Yeah.
Sometimes 4.
Yep,
so. And that's at yard sales a lot of times. Wednesday yard sales, Thursday. We don't have that. I've never seen a Wednesday yard sale.
Yeah, this is wild out here. Only Saturday? What's happening?
But what does your typical work day look like? Forget about sourcing for a minute. We can get back to it. But what is your, like, let's say it's a Monday morning.
Well, for starters, Sonia thinks I'm crazy. My wife, Sonia, thinks I'm crazy because I get up and I go right to work. I start off and
No coffee?
No coffee, no breakfast, no nothing. I literally get up and go straight to the basement every day, every day that I'm not sourcing. I can promise you that's what I do. Go straight downstairs. And the one thing I learned early on is list first thing. Because this, to me, is so important. Like, if you get your listing done in the morning, like, let's say you list 10 in the morning. If you decide that you have other things you got to do that day and life ends up happening, that you listed already. It's done. And you feel like you accomplished something already right there, even if things start happening. But so I'll go downstairs, I list right away. And then after I list, we start packing. We pack the stuff for the day, and then I take it to the post office in my small town. So I actually drive it down there. And then from there, I come back. Then it's starting to test, clean, and picture. And then
rinse, repeat.
Rinse and repeat, and then
but there's other stuff, of course, as well that you have to do. But on a typical day, and that's very similar to how I started. When I stopped teaching, I would wake up before I did anything. I would list 10 things.
Yep.
And I think now, let me ask you this question because I always ask this one too. Do you list by number of listings? Do you think about it in your head like I have to get 10, like you said? Do you think about it by a dollar amount? Is 10, how often do you list more than 10? How many days a week do you list? Right. It's a bunch of questions. But
no, in the morning I shoot for just 10. I want to get 10 done in the morning. Then, because I was going to say, I usually round out my evening by listing again. And then there's no number. I'm just listing. Like, you know, whatever.
You might even have the TV on or whatever.
And I'll list 3, go back to TikTok or Instagram, and then list 3. If you being full-time, you can do that. You don't have to rush to get it done. You can take little breaks in it.
So I'm hearing you say you don't list by a dollar amount. Like for me, if I'm thinking in my mind, like you said 99% of your income is coming from reselling. I know what I have to make every single day to make it. And so in my mind, I'm thinking a dollar amount gross. Would you be comfortable sharing like your margins? I mean, let's just say this. Are your margins, if you sell $100,000 during the year, are you making, say, 55, 60, you're making 60% margins profit?
Yeah, it's
somewhere around that?
60, just over 60.
I'll give you an idea. So you don't think about a dollar amount, then you just think about a product amount.
A product amount. And, I'll even say this, something I learned from my production days, is I don't like to let something that needs a lot of work slow up the stuff that I can list quickly.
Yeah. Okay.
So, like, I won't put this new in the package toy in the bottom of my death pile behind a VCR that needs to be tested and cleaned and all that stuff. That toy goes to the front. I picture it and I list it right then.
Okay, so you have a giant death pile. Is that what you're telling me?
I don't.
See, I used to have this little strategy where I would be like, all right, I do have to list 10 things this morning, but one of those things has to be an item over 10 pounds, and one of those things has to be an item that I do not want to list. And I would do that. I did that religiously for almost a year. And it was really, really good for me because it helped me not have things sitting in the bottom of that bin. So what other type, now let's just, and I haven't told you I was going to ask you this, so I'm going to ask you this now. Your wife does not have an outside income as well.
Not at all.
And so she is in this business with you and you guys are sharing this. Have you found that process to be better for your business? Obviously, she could have an outside job, but she doesn't. Do you think that's going to allow you to grow this?
That's the plan. I think it will, because of Sonia, because of who she is.
Okay.
Sonia's a very
Depends on who your wife is. You hear that, Blueberry's mom?
Well, I mean, we kind of talked about that. You know, you have to ask the individual person. Sonia, she's been helping me part-time anyways, here and there, and she's really good at this. She's a hard worker, too, so she has the work ethic as well.
And I've seen her pick. She's a great picker.
Yeah, she's a great picker,
That's
too,
really
yeah.
good.
I think it will help for sure with the picking, too, like, because, like, there's stuff I would have missed, and then, she is a digger. Like, she will dig into the boxes and find stuff that I'm like, okay, well, I would have never found that.
So all the folks out there in Facebook land and YouTube land that send me these messages and they're like, oh, I'd love to do this, and I ask them questions like, yeah, I've never even resold before, but they want to quit their job. Can you give them a little bit of the negatives here? What are the downsides I hear Wallen barking? What are the tough spots with this?
There's there's stressful moments for sure. Bad sales weeks, bad sales days. eBay is a roller coaster. But then it's made up with a really good sales week, a really good sales day. You have to get used to it. You have to not let it stress you out when you're having a bad sales week. And early on, it can be rough. It can be really rough as you're building it up, as you're establishing yourself as an eBay seller.
Let me ask you about that for a second. So if you're having a really bad, maybe it's 2 in the afternoon and you've sold nothing.
Yep.
You know, what does that do? What is your reaction to that? It's my guess is you're just steady. You just stick with the plan. But I want to hear what you think about that. What do you do?
I'm a positivity guy. It's actually pedal to the metal for me. If sales are slow, I'm listing more. I'm putting extra effort in. I'm listing as much as I can. If I have the inventory, I'm going down there putting an extra hour of listing in every day. Sending out offers, stuff like that. But for me, it's positivity and pedal to the metal. I kind of came up with this saying, sell through it. I'm going to sell through it. I'm going to do everything I can to sell through these problems.
I like it. So how about returns? Because I had a video the other day. I had a $203 return. And I had one sale, and it was past noon. And I'm like, holy moly, this is brutal. And it got me down a little bit. And I'm not even in your shoes where, you know, I could have a bad week and it's not going to change anything that's going on right now. But if you're completely depending on reselling and you see maybe even a slow month, a slow week, a slow day, and then you get a return, same idea, same approach?
Yeah, for sure. Again, positivity, sell-through. Now, I do get upset. It does make me mad to get a return. Bottom line, if you want to be a full-time reseller, unless you have some amazing inventory supplied to you that doesn't have a high return rate, you're going to have to go into stuff like electronics. You don't have to, but when you start going into stuff like that, and just volume-based alone, the more you sell, the more chance of returns, and returns are going to happen. You have to learn how to internally handle that. Okay. And like I said, the way I do is I try to just sell through it. But it can get to you. You really got to figure out a way to get through that, because that, I feel like, makes a lot of people stop, especially on eBay. You
know, I used to coach, and I could tell immediately when a kid was just entering my program when they were, you know, in middle school or whatever, and I knew I'd coach them in 3 or 4 years when they hit varsity. And I could tell back then the way they reacted to failure or disappointment. Yes. I could tell what type of ball player they would be, and I love the positive approach. It's not you know, put your head in the sand and ignore it. It's when things happen that are bad, have a positive reaction that's going to help you, as opposed to going down a road of woe is me or it's eBay's fault, and it might be eBay's fault. But what can you do to change it? So I really, really like that. Jimmy, looks like we have a visitor right here, which is another topic, which we might talk about in a minute, which is kind of the loneliness of it not being out there. But I want to ask you about sourcing, because I think if you're a full-time reseller, having a consistent source, which sometimes we don't, is a bit stressful. So let's talk about sourcing for a minute, and maybe talk about maybe how you've improved sourcing or got better things to sell. I think that's a key, not just staying stagnant. If I had to sell the things I used to sell, I wouldn't make near as much money.
When I first started, if you're like in my shoes where you weren't a great picker at first, I think back, I wasn't a great picker.
Yeah, none of us start off good, right?
Yeah. And so
some of us better than others, though. I've seen people who are pretty natural at it. But
so
anyway.
If you're a natural picker, you're gonna probably stride right into it. But me, you know, there was some major speed bumps. There were some really bad picking days. And now looking back, I blame it on the fact that I just wasn't a great picker. But the good thing is, over time, I've gotten really good at it. I mean, there's half the time I don't even have to pick up my phone and look stuff up. I can just know that that's worth money.
So he did today. It's good. I mean, he picked up some good stuff, super cheap.
Yep. So again, it's one of those things where you have to have patience. You have to go out there and pick and stick to it and have patience, because you will get better. Spend time looking stuff up, learning new niches, if you will. And
what are some new niches? Like, you sell, would you tell them what you sell?
The main thing I sell is toys and video games. I mean, toys are my favorite thing. And it's actually funny. It's modern toys. I don't go for the 80s and 70s toys. Stuff from the early 2000s does almost as good, if not as good, as that older stuff.
All right, so I'm going to go off on a little tangent here. All right, turn the camera around for a minute, because a lot of times I'll be filming in here and I'll say, it's very hard to make a living doing what I'm doing. I think it's possible, but it is not easy to do it. And Jimmy picks a lot of the same stuff I do. So I got to ask you a question. And I want to talk about sourcing for a second before I ask you the question. If I had to feed my family, I would find other sourcing methods. I would sell other things. I just happen to get incredible joy out of this. And I think that is key in this, because it, like he said earlier, it's not a job if you enjoy what you're doing. And he talks, everybody loves to source, especially the stuff that you love to source. So let me ask you a question, because I just said that here. I'm just going to throw out some numbers here, and I'll start low. Is it possible to net profit, make $30,000 a year doing this, or doing toys, video games, and not that you're passing up things that aren't that. Is it possible in your location? If I asked you in my location, you'd be like, I don't know about around here. But where you're at right now, which is Ohio now, you were in Denver. Denver?
I was in Denver.
You're in Denver. Is it possible to make $30,000 net profit after all expenses, just selling a few things that you really enjoy?
Yeah, I think 100%. Yes, okay. If you're in the right area. Yeah.
How about 40?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Could you foresee a time in your future where, and this is a tough one, so think about it, where selling what you're selling now and the things you enjoy to sell, could you make with your wife $100,000 net profit a year? I put that number out there to make you think.
That's a tough one. I like to talk from experience, but I think it would be all about sourcing, because there's only so many toys. There's only so many vintage toys.
So maybe you'd have to find slightly more conventional, but more reliable sourcing than just garage sales or the occasional thrift store. Right. Even if you have garage sales 3 days, I can tell you right now.
Well, I want to say that there's a way to do it, actually. Now that I think about it, I call it like leveling up. So the money that you've made so far, if you're able to spend up on maybe a little bit better product, you can do that. You know, as you start to go to auctions and spend a little bit more at auctions, maybe spend $70 for a $200 item, that's still great
as
profit.
Opposed to $1 for a $20
exactly
item.
So if you can, and that's kind of where I'm at right now, we're leveling up to where I'm spending a little bit more on better items. So it's going to have a lot more cost involved to get there.
And even me, the king of selling, $10 Tupperware lids, even I have done that lately. And my average sale price has gone up almost 20% this year over last year. And that's pretty tough when you sell, 800 ET pens for $4.50 a piece. So I totally agree with that. And it's just constantly upping your game and try. And I did that today. You saw me spend $350 on an item, which is something I don't normally do. And $1 into $50 is not as much money as $350 into $1,000.
And it's just a matter of waiting for those results. You spent that money, but the results don't show until that stuff sells.
And you're right. So having the discipline, having the capital to source, never missing that opportunity, I think is key. And that takes, because you're not siphoning off all of the money you're making. You're also creating a cushion where you can reinvest that money, and that's difficult. And then you got to figure out how much you pay. So a little slight question off a tangent here. Yep. So let's say, do you pay yourself a salary monthly?
Yeah, I do. I pay myself a monthly salary at the first of every month.
And it doesn't change.
It doesn't change.
I think that is key, because if you make double that, you can take that money and reinvest it into business. I think that is something that a lot of people miss. If you make double the money, you're not getting double the paycheck that month. Right. You're living within your means and growing the business. Does that sound good to you, Pepper? Is that a good idea? Enough money for treats.
You know, you can annually reassess, or quarterly, whatever you decide works best for you. Reassess, maybe give yourself a bonus. You know, if you've been able to save up some capital in your business because you gave yourself just a standard paycheck, you can, whenever you decide, reassess that. Okay, well, since I've been saving up this capital and it's doing really well, maybe I can give myself a bonus for the year instead of on top of my annual salary.
You should do it in December when you got to buy all those Christmas gifts. Right. I often get these two questions from people all the time. What about taxes? What about insurance? So what are your thoughts about taxes? You know, resellers don't pay. We don't pay taxes, right? That's what everybody says. Well, what are your thoughts on taxes and insurance?
You had to ask about taxes. It's like, taxes are just so touchy, such a hard topic. What you'll learn is what numbers you have to keep. You're going to learn what numbers you need to keep track of. And if you have trouble keeping track of those yourself, then you will need to find help keeping track of them. That's all there is to that. And
I will say this, that you do need to spend some time learning about that, because there are truly real tax deductions for people that do what we do, that you can write off quite a bit of stuff that you wouldn't think, especially if you're, you know, incorporated or LLC or do whatever it is you're doing. There are ways to make sure, if you're making $60,000 net a year, you're not paying taxes on $60,000 net a year if you're doing what you're supposed to do and keep track of your legitimate stuff. Or if you have my reseller Genie, code Commonwealth. See what I did there?
Yeah, that's great.
30 or 15% off your first month.
Yeah.
How about insurance? Because obviously I pay for my own insurance, and most people ask that question. Are you paying for your own insurance?
Yeah, so Sonia and I are paying for our own insurance. Now, it can depend on where you live. It can be more expensive in different cities, states, wherever. But part of what you said with the taxes, when you show a little less income because you did the correct write-offs and stuff, there are a lot of options out there to get insurance that's pretty affordable. It's worth doing the research and finding. But yeah, we pay for our own, and it's not too bad because of that, the way we did it.
And this surprises people to me, because even my own family, when I said, hey, I'm not going to teach anymore, they're like, oh my gosh, the benefits and whatever. I'm like, listen, I can find, it's not the same way for everybody, but I'm like, I already paid for my family's insurance. Right. My school only insured me. They didn't insure my family. I had to pay my school to insure my family. So there are options. It's not the end all and be all out there. Yeah. And there's multiple different options, which I don't really want to get into. But I got to ask you something real quick, because Pepper's at my feet. Do you have a furry friend that helps you resell? Do you got any pets?
I got two pets. I got a pug, Poe, and then I got a Frenchie puppy named Bean. We also call him the monster, the terror.
In the Facebook group the other day, I posted a picture of my furry business partners, and there were hundreds and hundreds of people posting their animal. So reselling can be, you know, not lonely necessarily, and that's where I think YouTube, that's why it's a success for so many people, because the reselling community, they're not going out and working 9 to 5, they don't have all the time, and this is their community. So I want to talk about YouTube for just a second. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about YouTube for a second, because you do have a YouTube channel. You already told us you make less than $100 a month on this YouTube channel. Tell us a little bit about your kind of YouTube journey, how you envisioned it. Right. Where do you see it going? Is this an option that a lot of people should do? Because a lot of people try it and they pour a lot of time into YouTube. And obviously I have a YouTube channel that's successful and I'm making money off of it. And so I don't want to discourage people from doing something, but I also don't want to be, you know, the person, you know, selling something that's just not realistic. So I want to get your take on YouTube. What was your journey like up to this point, and where do you see it going?
So from experience, I'll say, like, it's been a tough road at first. It was a tough road because I had the wrong attitude about it. I wanted to make a lot of money, and I wanted to like latch on to every YouTuber and get them to say my name and try to go down that road.
Which, by the way, he didn't ask to be on this video. He just wanted to go hang out. I told him I wanted him to do this video, so he's here at my request. We had a fun day picking, and I can't wait to take you to dinner. But
I've had a great time with Kevin for sure. But I think that has to be said because it's so common in the community.
And people,
it really is.
And they a lot of people think, hey, you know, we can make all this stuff work and it's going to be rosy. Where I would suggest people, I didn't quit my job till 2 years after I started YouTube. And the reality is my family needed my job as a teacher and they needed my job as a reseller. My wife helped me with that just to make ends meet. We just didn't make that much money. You know, no matter where you live, if you've got a family of 5 and you know, you got to have a decent amount of money to make a living. And that's just the facts. I didn't decide to quit my job on that date. Where did it go? On that date, until I realized that I could replace my teaching income with YouTube income, and that's when I made that decision.
Right.
And I think if you're factoring in, oh, I could make this on social media, I think that's probably a mistake unless you're actually already making it on social media.
I agree 100%. And I actually had to stop I took a break, I reassessed everything, and when I came back, YouTube was then a hobby, and I wanted to enjoy it. And that was the biggest change that helped me the most.
Then you had a 22,000 view video. It's not up there right now. Let me see if I can find it. So look at that. Once you started doing it for just a hobby and enjoyment, that's what I mean. I started doing it, and I didn't know where the heck it was going to go, but I just wanted to share what I was doing, and I absolutely loved doing it. And I hope that showed through. I still love doing it. It wasn't being done to make money, because the reality is the time you spend on YouTube, if you're making no money, could be far better spent.
Yes, and the rewards of friends.
Yeah,
that's the best reward so far to me is the friends I've made.
Yeah.
Through my YouTube channel. I would not give that up for anything. And so if I was asked would I do it again, I would do it for that reason alone. Again, I haven't made a lot of money doing this, but I've made a lot of friends, and I would not give that up for anything.
So you're not going to tell people, go quit your jobs today, start a YouTube channel, and start reselling, and you can make $100,000. You're not going to tell them that?
I'm not going to tell them that. It's going to happen right away. But things can happen.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Thank you, Jimmy. We're going to conclude it with one last question. All right, Jimmy, I want to give you the last word. Well, I never give anybody
You're going to give me the
last
last word?
No, I'm not. I'm going to do the last word. But I want to give you one last opportunity here. I want you to tell us about your goals for the future. So what do you see this going? Do you think it's scalable? Do you think you've got some goals that are attainable, and what are they?
So when Sonia went full-time is to double what I was doing by myself, basically. She was helping me a little bit, but it was to double it. I see it happening. I think our numbers are up ever since we started working together. So I think it's doable. It's just a matter of taking the time it takes to source the inventory to double it. When we moved, we scaled down our inventory, so now we're building it back up. So it's just going to take time to build that inventory up and get those numbers up to where. But I think it's doable. And
I think that, and we talk about personal goals. We've talked about your house and whatever, and it doesn't sound like, and this is key, and I hear this across the board, living debt-free and being able to accumulate capital and make improvements in your life. And you talked about your house. So are those improvements for your personal reasons or for eBay reasons or for both?
Definitely a lot of personal reasons, because we just bought a house in Ohio, and it needs cosmetic upgrades all across the board. And it would be really nice if eBay could, eBay helped us buy the house. eBay basically. By the way, I wasn't going to ask this, but a lot of people, that's difficult because you got to show that income. Was it difficult to be? Did you have a chunk of money that you could put down on it, or okay? So that's a lot, and that's difficult for people to grasp sometimes. Is they leave a job and then they're doing this job, and you've got to prove the money you're making in order to qualify for those loans. I'm not afraid to say eBay provided the 20% down that we needed on the house. And
you provided it. eBay was...
eBay helped me provide... Yeah. And then my business alone was approved for the loan.
Wow.
Sonia's passed, because Sonia was working, but they did not use that to qualify for the loan.
That's awesome. That's very good information to have. Thank you. All right, y'all, I got a grumpy cat. I better get some treats, but I wanted to just tell you about his channel one more time. Old school picker. OSF, Old School Flips Picker.
There it is.
Jeez, don't change your name on me anymore. My goodness. Go check him out. He really is one of the nicest guys in reselling. I really appreciate you stopping by, and I'm going to take you out to dinner. But I wanted to give you this. So I asked him, like, do you have an Inaman? And he said, yeah. I said, did you buy it? And what'd you say?
No, he gave it to me at the reseller rally. Come on.
In 2000, and what was that, 19?
No, was it 9? No, it was...
No, 21. What am I talking
21.
about?
2021.
I don't know. It was canceled and moved. I can't.
Yeah,
2021.
June.
That's right. June 2021 is when it was. That's right, because it wasn't long after that date right there. So you don't have an Enema Man. CommonwealthPicker.com, by the way. You can go check them out. And so you're going to got that right there, and it'll get your store moving as we head into Q4. So, Jimmy, thank you for stopping by. And Sonia, I wish you were here today. You're a great picker, too. And I just wanted to say, hey, all right, do you know how I end my videos? I'm putting you on the spot. Oh, come on, Jimmy.
Oh, hold on. Nope, I'm drawing a blank.
You can say, I can't wait to see you next time.
I can't wait to see you next time.
Nope.
Nope, that was
you got to be a pause in between the next and the time.
I can't wait to see you next time.
See y'all.